Right now, in this very moment, you're alive. But are you actually here? Are you truly present? Or are you somewhere else, entirely lost in a memory that no longer exists, or worrying about a future that hasn't even arrived? Most of us spend our lives caught in this mental time travel, constantly drifting from what is real to what is imagined. And that's the tragedy, because life doesn't happen in the past. It doesn't happen in the future. It only ever happens now. This is the moment Alan Watts devoted his entire life to waking us up to. And the reason it matters isn't abstract or mystical. It's because unless you wake up to this moment, you won't just miss out on life. You'll miss the point of life. And that's what we're about to explore. In a world that constantly pulls us out of ourselves, notifications, deadlines, social media, endless noise, Watts reminds us of something so simple, it's almost laughable, that the present moment contains everything. And yet, we live as if it contains nothing. The irony is brutal. So let's confront it together. Let's wake up. Imagine you're sitting at a window watching a sunset. The sky is a masterpiece, colors spilling across the horizon in a way no human hand could ever replicate. But your phone buzzes and you glance down to a text, an update, a reminder. You look up. The light has changed. The moment is gone. That's the cost of distraction. That's the cost of being anywhere but here. And we do it constantly. We live in our heads, our to-do lists, our regrets, our hopes. But we don't live in our lives. Watts once said, "This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now. Not half engaged, not kind of aware. Completely." That's the revolution. And here's the paradox. You don't need to do anything new to live in the present. You just have to stop doing what pulls you out of it.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
So ask yourself this: where are you right now? Not just physically. Where is your mind? Where is your attention? So many of us think of presence as something passive, something still, something you practice only when you meditate or do yoga. But the truth is, presence is power. It's clarity. It's the raw, electric awareness of being alive without needing to be anywhere else. And it's something you can bring into every single moment, no matter how ordinary. Washing dishes, walking to your car, listening to someone speak. These aren't throwaway moments. He told us, these are life. But we miss them because we're always chasing the next thing. Watts challenges us to stop chasing and start being. Not because it's trendy or spiritual, but because it's true. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The future you're worrying about doesn't exist. Not yet. The past you're obsessing over, it's already gone. The only thing that's real, truly real, is what's happening right now. But we don't treat it that way. We treat the present moment like a waiting room, like a stepping stone to something better. But what if this is the better? What if this is the destination? The philosopher Eckhart Tolle, echoing Watts, said, "Realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have. Make the now the primary focus of your life." That's not just advice. That's a warning. Because when you postpone your presence, you postpone your life. Let's go deeper. Why is it so hard to be present? It's not because it's difficult. It's because presence requires dropping the story. The ego doesn't live in the now. The ego needs time past accomplishments, future anxieties, identity built on narrative. But the present moment doesn't care about your story. It just is. And that can be terrifying. Because in the now, there's no control, no certainty, just raw, unfiltered reality. But Watts would argue that this is where the beauty is. This is where the aliveness is. This is where you really are not as a character, but as consciousness itself. Not as someone doing life, but as life doing you. So what do we do with this? How do we return to presence when the mind pulls us away? The answer is simple, but not easy. You notice, you pay attention, you feel the breath entering your lungs. You feel the sounds around you right now. You feel the temperature on your skin. You feel the weight of your body, the beating of your heart. You don't analyze it. You don't judge it. You just allow it. And when a thought comes, you watch it, like a cloud in the sky, and you let it pass. No resistance, no grasping, just awareness. This is presence, not some altered state, but just this moment, as it is. But let's not pretend this is always easy. Life is messy, painful, chaotic. Being present in joy is one thing. But being present in pain, that's a whole different level. That's the real test. Can you stay with the moment even when it hurts? Can you let it move through you without running away? Watts believed that suffering comes not from pain itself, but from our resistance to it, from our refusal to be with what is. So presence isn't about escaping discomfort. It's about embracing reality in all its forms: joy, sorrow, confusion, ecstasy. Presence says, yes, this too. And in that yes, we find peace. Not because the pain is gone, but because we're no longer fighting it. Now think about your relationships. How many times have you been with someone physically, but not mentally? How often do we listen just enough to reply, but not enough to hear? Presence is the greatest gift you can give another human being. Not advice, not solutions, just you, fully here, fully with them. No distractions, no agenda. Just awareness meeting awareness. And when that happens, something magical occurs. The illusion of separation dissolves. You're no longer two people talking, you're one consciousness dancing in two forms. That's what love really is. Not possession, not approval. Presence. And here's the kicker: presence is contagious. When you show up fully, others feel it. They drop their masks. They soften. They open. Because deep down, we're all starving for this. Not more information, not more stimulation, but more being, more now, more real. And you have the power to offer that right now, in this moment. Not by changing who you are, but by being who you are without distraction, without performance, without apology. So let me ask you something radical. What would your life look like if you lived every moment as if it were the only moment that mattered? Because it is. The past is memory. The future is projection. But this moment is alive. It's real. It's sacred. And it's slipping through your fingers every time you forget to notice it. So stop. Breathe. Look around. Wake up. You're here. You made it. This is it. And it's enough. Time is the most convincing illusion we live under. and it's so deeply ingrained in our minds that we rarely question it. We see time as a river flowing from the past through the present and into the future. We structure our entire lives around it, waking up to alarms, marking calendars, counting down minutes, chasing deadlines. But Alan Watts invites us to see something radically different. That time as we experience it is not real in the way we think it is. It's not a straight line. It's not a conveyor belt carrying us from birth to death. It's a mental construct, a way of organizing experience. And the only moment that has ever truly existed, the only moment that ever can exist is now. Right now. This breath. This heartbeat. This flicker of awareness where all of life is happening. And think about it. You never experienced the past directly. You only recall it as a memory, and even that memory is happening now. You never experience the future. You only imagine it, project it, fear it, hope for it, and all of that speculation is happening now too. So if the past is memory and the future is imagination, where exactly do we believe we are spending our lives? Not in reality, in shadows, in echoes, in mental simulations. And that's why we feel disconnected. That's why we feel like something's missing, because we're constantly abandoning the only place where life actually lives, the present moment. Watts reminds us that the present isn't just a fleeting point between two infinities. It's the eternal now, the timeless foundation beneath all appearances of change. You can't find it on a clock. You can't measure it. You can only be it. But because we're so addicted to doing, to planning, to achieving, we resist the now. We think of it as unproductive, unimportant, even boring. We say things like, "I don't have time," when really, all we ever have is time this time. Right here. And the illusion of time is what keeps us trapped in the illusion of self. We identify with our story. This is who I was. This is who I'm becoming. But who are you right now? Not your history. Not your goals. Not your personality, which is just a set of habitual patterns. Who are you underneath all that? That's the question Watts keeps pointing us to. Because when you drop the past and stop projecting the future, what's left is not a void. It's your true nature, spacious, aware, and free. And here's where it gets really interesting. When you fully embrace the present, time actually expands. Moments stretch out. Colors become richer. Sounds become deeper. You begin to notice things you'd normally miss, the way light filters through leaves, the subtle rhythm of your breath, the texture of silence. Time no longer feels like something you're racing against. It becomes fluid, open, alive. Paradoxically, when you stop trying to manage time, you find you have more of it, because you're finally living in it. But the mind doesn't like this. The mind wants to live in time because it needs time to survive. The ego is a story built on memory and anticipation. And if you live entirely in the now, the ego has nothing to grip. That's why the present can feel disorienting. Like stepping into a space where your usual reference points have vanished. But that's not a problem. That's the doorway. That's freedom. True presence is the death of the psychological self and the birth of who you really are. So how do we stay here? How do we root ourselves in this eternal now when the world is constantly pulling us away? The answer isn't to escape the world. It's to engage it more deeply, not as a concept, but as an experience. Use your senses. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Listen to the subtle hum of life around you. Look into someone's eyes without thought. These are not just spiritual techniques. They are acts of radical participation. They return you to the living moment. They bring you home. One of the most powerful practices Alan Watts suggested is very simple. Just watch. Watch your thoughts. Watch your sensations. Watch the way your mind tries to escape the now. Don't try to change anything. Don't try to fix or improve, just observe. When you do this, a subtle shift happens. You begin to realize that you are not the thinker. You are the awareness in which thought arises. You are not the doer. You are the presence in which doing happens. And in that realization, the grip of time begins to loosen. Let's pause and consider something. Who would you be without a past? Without a future? Without a story? Not nothing but everything. Free to respond, but free to love. Free to meet the moment without baggage. Imagine waking up each day like it was the first day of your life. No assumptions, no regrets, just wide-eyed wonder. That's not fantasy. That's reality if you're present enough to see it. Now, let's connect this to real life. How do we live this way in a world that runs on schedules and deadlines? The key is not to abandon time, but to stop being ruled by it. Use clocks, but don't become one. Make plans, but don't live for them. Show up fully in each moment and let the future take care of itself. There's wisdom in structure, but madness in obsession. Presence doesn't mean you stop thinking about tomorrow. It means you stop living in tomorrow. You act today from today in today. And here's a powerful truth. When you live this way, you actually become more effective, more creative, more attuned, because your actions are rooted in clarity, not fear. You're not reacting, you're responding. You're not surviving, you're living. So if you're building something, build it from presence. If you're talking to someone, talk with your whole being. If you're walking, walk as if the earth was sacred beneath your feet. Because it is. Because you are. There's a story Watts loved to share about a Zen master who was asked, "What is enlightenment?" He replied, "When I eat, I eat. When I walk, I walk. And when I sleep, I sleep. That's it. That's the whole teaching. Not doing more, not knowing more, just being more, but fully, without distraction, without resistance." And that's available to you right now, not after you finish your checklist, not after you solve your problems, but right here in this breath. So here's the challenge. Can you live 1 full hour today completely in the now? Can you resist the urge to escape into thought and instead fall deeper into presence? Try it. Notice how the world changes. Notice how you change. And notice how, beneath all the noise, there's a stillness that has always been here. That's who you are. Not the thoughts, not the emotions, but the space in which they rise and fall. Timeless, boundless, awake. In the end, Watts wasn't trying to give us answers. He was trying to point us back to the only place where answers can be found, the present moment. He knew that no amount of thinking can grasp reality, only being can. And he knew that the greatest secret of all is not hidden in some future enlightenment. It's right here, hidden in plain sight, waiting for you to notice. Here, to be alive is not merely to exist, but to feel your existence, to know it from the inside out, to taste the raw immediacy of each moment without needing to explain it, fix it, or escape it. Alan Watts didn't just speak about life, he lived inside its pulse. He dared to ask what most of us are too busy or too afraid to ask. What does it really mean to live? Not to survive, not to succeed, not to accumulate experiences or perfection or knowledge, but to truly be alive, qualitatively, deeply, intimately. And the answer he discovered, the one he tried to offer us again and again, was not in a doctrine or a dogma. It was in the flow, the natural rhythm of life that moves through all things. The same rhythm that moves the tides, grows the trees, shapes our breath, and beats our hearts. The tragedy is, we've been taught to resist that flow, or to fight it, to stand apart from it like we're something separate. But the truth is, we are the flow. We've just forgotten how to move with it. So let's talk about merging with the flow of existence. What does it mean, practically and philosophically? Watts often described life as music. Not a march, not a race to the finish, but a dance. Think about how absurd it would be if we listened to music just to get to the final note, or danced just to land on one foot. No, the point of music is the music. The point of dance is the dancing. And the point of life is living. But how often do we live like that's actually true? How often do we treat this moment not as a stepping stone, but as the destination? When you merge with the flow, you stop trying to bend life to your will. You stop trying to control every outcome. You let go of the idea that you need to master the river. Instead, you learn to swim. You learn to move with the current, not against it. You start to trust that life is not something happening to you, it's something happening through you. And that shift is everything. Because from that space, you begin to act not from fear, not from scarcity, not from reaction, but from alignment, from coherence, from truth. But merging with the flow doesn't mean life will always feel easy or comfortable. But in fact, it often means surrendering to chaos, to uncertainty, to the unknown. It means letting go of the mind's need to explain and the ego's need to control. And that's scary, because we built our identities around being the one who knows, the one who plans, the one who decides. But Watts reminds us that the deepest wisdom comes not from clinging, but from letting go. Not from standing apart, but from joining in. Can you imagine what it would feel like to stop resisting what is? To meet each moment without needing it to be different? This is where presence meets courage, the courage to say yes to life as it is. Not just the parts you like, not just the moments that feel good, but all of it. The mess, the mystery, the magnificence. To look at pain and say, yes, this too is part of the dance. To feel lost and still trust the rhythm beneath your feet. That's what it means to be truly alive. Not to have all the answers, but to live into the questions. Not to be perfect, but to be here, with your whole self, awake, unfiltered. And if you're wondering what this looks like in practice, it's simpler than you think. Start with your breath, not just in meditation, but in the middle of life. When you're stuck in traffic, when you're washing dishes, when you're speaking to someone you love, feel the inhale. Feel the exhale. Notice how life breathes you. You're not doing it, it's doing you. That's the flow. Then, move your attention into your body, into the sensations, the energy, the subtle aliveness that's always present but usually ignored. Feel the ground beneath you, the air around you, and the space within you. This isn't mystical, but it's real. It's now. And it's available to you always if you choose to tune in. But here's where it gets even more powerful. When you live in flow, you stop fighting yourself. You stop splitting your attention, your identity, your life. The inner critic loses its grip. The striving quiets down, and the pressure to prove or achieve or be somebody melts away. Because you realize you already are, not in some future, perfected form, but in this raw, present, breathing moment. That's enough. That's everything. And from that space, action becomes effortless. Connection becomes natural. Creativity becomes spontaneous. You begin to live not from the mind, but from the moment. And that's where your true life begins. What's often said, the meaning of life is just to be alive, not to become alive someday, not to earn your aliveness, but to be it, right now, just as you are. But to do that, you have to let go of the idea that life owes you something, or that you need to figure it all out. There is no grand solution, no final arrival. There is only this moment, and when you meet it fully, without resistance, you realize you don't need a reason to be alive. You are the reason. Life is not a problem to be solved. It's a reality to be experienced. So ask yourself, what would it feel like to live today as if you were part of the dance, not the one trying to choreograph it? What would change if you stopped trying to be someone and just allowed yourself to be this expression of life, this flash of awareness, this unique note in the music of the cosmos? That's not just philosophy, that's liberation. And here's the most beautiful part. When you live this way, everything becomes sacred. Not because you impose meaning from the outside, but because you finally see the meaning that's already there. A cup of tea becomes a ceremony. A walk becomes a pilgrimage. A conversation becomes communion. You stop waiting for life to become extraordinary, and you realize it already is. The ordinary is the miracle, when you're present enough to see it. So now, we arrive at the heart of it all. Wake up. Not someday. Now. Not as an idea, but as a practice. Not because you're broken, but because you're whole. Not because you need answers, but because you already are the answer. Be here. Be alive. Be this. And when the mind drifts, as it will gently return, again and again, that's the path. That's the art. That's the dance. And I leave you with one final question, the kind that doesn't seek an answer, but opens a door. If you stopped trying to live life and simply allowed life to live you, what would change? The answer is waiting, not in your thoughts, not in your plans, but in the pulse of this very moment. Feel it, trust it, be it.